The Lincoln Wishlist sales event is happening now. Here's what's on everyone's wish list. Enjoying holiday jingles with brilliant 3D audio that surrounds you? Check. Watching snow flurries through the panoramic Vista roof? Check. Packing up presents with the spacious Lincoln Splitgate? Check. Everything you want. All standard on the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV. Visit your local Lincoln retailer or learn more at Lincoln.com for exceptional offers on 2025 Lincoln vehicles today.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
I am Nicole Khalil, and you're listening to the This Is Woman's Work podcast, where together we're redefining what it means, what it looks and feels like to be doing woman's work in the world today. And doing woman's work, whatever that means to you, often requires you to make big choices about your career, your relationships, your goals, and your life. And somewhere along the way, many of us were taught that the right way to make choices is by gathering all the facts, crunching all the numbers, and double-checking until things look bulletproof. We're taught that logic is safe, that reason is reliable, and that intuition, well, intuition is that woo-woo thing you might consider only after all the real work is done. But here's the thing. Logic confirms what already exists, what's already known. Intuition relies on a different kind of knowing and lets us step into possibility. And if you've ever ignored your gut feeling and later regretted it, you already know. Our intuition is often miles ahead of our minds. And the challenge that most of us face today is there's so much noise that we have a hard time hearing our intuition. And even if we hear it, we're out of practice trusting it. There are too many shoulds and supposed tos, too much other people's opinions, drowning out the knowing that lives inside of each of us. Which is why learning to hear, trust, and act on our intuition is a skill we must develop. We must practice. Because at the end of the day, intuition isn't about magic, it's about alignment. It's about trusting yourself and your desires before there's evidence and believing your inner compass knows the way, even when your logic is begging for that step-by-step guide. Logic has its place for sure, but intuition is what has us become who we're actually put here to be. So we're talking all about intuition today with Laura Day, who has spent 4 decades showing the world that intuition is practical, powerful, and that it's transformational. She's a New York Times bestselling author of 6 books, including Practical Intuition and her most recent book, The Prism. She's been featured in Forbes, Newsweek, and has appeared on Oprah, The View, and CNN, and continues to teach thousands through her workshops and live broadcasts. Laura is a fierce believer that our vulnerabilities can make us extraordinary, and she's here to share how intuition can become your greatest tool for creating the life that you want. So, Laura, I'm thrilled to have you on the show, and I'd love to kick us off by having you define or describe what we're talking about here. What is intuition, and how do we know or distinguish it from all the other stuff?
So to define intuition and how it plays into our reasoning and our choice making, let's go back to intellect and facts. When I was a young girl, hydrogenated oils were considered better than olive oil or any other kind of oil. So doctors like my father and my grandfather, basically ate petroleum derivatives instead of natural foods. We found out later that that fact was wrong. And in fact, that a lot of dietary medicine had been based on a fact that was false. Intuition gives us a set of accurate facts non-locally. And what do I mean by non-locally? We get all of our information from our 5 senses. That's all we have. But what has been shown, and especially now with the kind of instrumentation available, is that those 5 senses can travel in time. They can travel in space. What does that mean? You can accurately perceive the future, not 100% in great detail. We're human, we're fallible. You can accurately view a remote location just like you would see the screen in front of you. You can accurately feel what someone else is feeling. And by the way, that has upsides and downsides. You can accurately converse over a distance. Again, that has upsides and downsides. Psychic skills is kind of the common vernacular for intuition. One of the things that I think is so important, because once we magicalize something, it takes time, it costs money, we're giving our power away, and it becomes useless. So I think, and I've thought for the last 4 decades, my soapbox is don't magicalize. This is a simple human skill. Train it the way you trained intellect, the way you trained emotion, the way you trained your social skills, the way you trained your body. Train it, apply it, and it will give you the guidance that you need.
Okay, so what popped into my head as you were talking is just this fundamental belief that I have that we know so much more than we give ourselves credit or than we think we do. And the example you gave was a great one. One that popped into my head too was breastfeeding. That's another one where it's like the
Right?
facts about it have changed so much over time. So using an example like that.
Great example, by the way. I remember when my pediatrician told me that, the breastfeeding was keeping my 2-month-old from being independent. I'm like, "What? He's gonna get up and go to the refrigerator?" I mean, I can just the absurdity of that.
Yeah, so that I think is a good example of when something just feels right or feels wrong, when there is an instinct in us that's like, ugh, or it doesn't really matter what the facts are, something feels like this is the right thing. Is that what we're talking about? Are those examples of intuition?
No, feeling is actually the opposite point of the spectrum of intuition, because feeling could be the way you were trained, and so it doesn't resonate with a dysfunctional you. Feeling could be that you need to eat a sandwich. You know, when people make goals like happiness, I'm like, a head injury could give you happiness too. Um, it isn't. Intuition is when you're given data. So I was given data that this was going to make my child dependent, and I looked for new data to either confirm or disprove, because obviously, this is a doctor telling me this. There was intellectual data. There was also kind of places that all of a sudden my attention looked. I began to ask people who were successful, "Were you breastfed?" Who had allergies, "Were you breastfed?" So my attention led me to new sources of information that I could then confirm. Be careful with feeling. Feeling is very misleading, and feeling is often historical. It's based on an old you, and it's not really accurate in terms of the reliable data that intuition can provide.
Okay. So this is fascinating because myself included, I think a lot of us think of intuition as tied to a gut feeling or a feeling. You said earlier that we can train our intuition. How do we do that? How do we practice that?
So, I mean, there are so many different ways. And one of the simplest ways, and I think part of the problem of training intuition when you take it out of the mystical, is that it's just so organic. It's so simple. Although, like everything else, it takes practice. And I want to preface this that my day job is predicting the future for 4 multi-billion-dollar companies. Um, it's not talking to plants, and it's not, seeing images in a crystal ball. I have always worked in what I call the straight world of finance, of medicine. And the reason I've done that is because when you go to a psychic, when you go to an intuitive, unless they're also a therapist, unless they're also a doctor, you really are giving a lot of power away just in the act of going.
Mhm.
Whereas when you don't, a lot of it's very subjective, so when someone says you should drink more water, I'm like, "Based on what exactly? Like, how do I prove that?" Um, Whereas reading for things that have right or wrong answers actually protects you, and that's how I train people to their intuition. So the first thing you need to do, and you can all do this now as I'm speaking, what is your number one goal right now? Those of you who are anxiety types, don't worry about choosing the wrong one. This is just something you can do over and over again. Right now, what is it you want? Okay, now you have a target, you have a file for your intuition. And then there's a process of once you have a goal, and this is outlined in my fourth book, The Circle. Once you have a goal, you'll begin to notice or desire things that aren't your quotidian habits. So you'll begin to, for example, notice that let's say your goal is to really find a great partner. You'll notice that, oh, wow, there's another way to get to work that might be more scenic, even if it's not faster. Oh, I'm noticing this group on ads everywhere. My subconscious is getting on board, and I'm having dreams about one specific moment in my childhood. Like, all of a sudden, once you have a goal,
Hmm.
your intuition, your intellect, and your emotions, your subconscious, begin to work with it. The problem is we then shut it down because of our habits. And that's why I wrote The Prism, which is my seventh book, which is how do we use that incredible framework that is you to create change in the world, in our world, in your world. Because I live in an apartment building, we are no more than a foot apart from one another by our walls, but we live in completely different worlds. So
Yeah.
the world you want right is actually right here. So the first thing is have a goal. The second thing is document all the new things that come out of left field as you go about your day. Don't take another half an hour out of your day to do another thing that you're supposed to do to reach some kind of health or enlightenment. I believe in exercise while you're getting somewhere you want to go. I believe in healing, and it is the intuitive way. Healing as you're living the way you want to live, but it does start with a goal. And I think that the problem is that we're so scattered because there's so many demands on us that we don't come back to a healthy organization where intuition and all of our other resources can engage.
Yeah. Okay, so in this documenting or paying attention
Not
phase.
paying You gotta document because memory is sneaky and inaccurate.
Okay.
So I'm old school, I like to carry a little book and I'll notice and I'll jot it down and then at the end of the week, I'll look and all of a sudden I'll say, wow, this is a real roadmap and the synchronicities have been building. Interesting how I wanted to find out what I wanted to do, and I keep meeting people who are doing this job, for example. That's intuition pushing you in a direction, but if you don't document it, you're not gonna notice it because we are very enclosed by our old prism, by our old habits.
Yeah. Okay, so Laura, I think there's a high probability that I'm overthinking this, but I'm going to ask the question because I'm guessing other people might too. In this documenting.
Write it down. I mean, documenting may be a lofty word. Write it down. It's not a writer, draw what you're seeing. Like,
Okay.
make it so take it out of your messy mind, put it outside of you so you can view it as a roadmap at some point.
Is there an element of being neutral about it or, so practicing curiosity? Because what I worry about is if we want to, everything can be a sign.
Everything is a sign, actually. And so when what you see begins to change, in response to your doing something new, really setting a goal and contextualizing all experience within that goal, everything is a sign, everything is a guide, everything's a caution, everything's a roadmap. And what you learn to do is dance with that interconnected world, but with your destination, you know, in that framework.
Leaves are falling, lattes are being questionably flavored, and it's officially time to get cozy. And nobody does cozy like Cozy Earth. For me, fall and the holidays are all about curling up on the couch, lighting the fire, and changing into my PJs the second I'm done for the day, which is tricky because it's also the season of year-end goals, family coordination, and endless holiday shopping. And there's always that one person who's impossible to shop for. For me, it's my mom. So last year, I gave her Cozy Earth's pajama set, and she loved them so much that I'm just going to do it again. They're made with the softest stretch knit that feels incredible and sleeps cooler than cotton, so they're cozy without the overheating. They're so good, I'm putting them at the top of my list too. And Black Friday has come early at Cozy Earth because right now you can stack my code, Woman's Work, on top of their site-wide sale, giving you up to 40% off in savings. These deals won't last, so start your holiday shopping today. And if you get a post-purchase survey, mention you heard about Cozy Earth on the show. Make sure to wrap the ones you love in luxury with Cozy Earth. If you're anything like me, drinking enough water every day sounds great in theory, right up there with getting 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep and folding the laundry right away, which is why I found a smarter way to stay hydrated with Cure. Cure hydration packs are clean and simple, plant-based electrolytes, no added sugar, and just 25 calories. They hydrate better than water alone, and get this, they actually taste good. My favorite flavor is lemonade, but they have several great flavors that you can try, which make drinking water feel like less of a chore. They even have a Cure Hydration variety pack for kids. JJ uses them over long practices or tournament weekends, and honestly, I use them then too, because hauling kids around to all of their activities should qualify as a sport. Listen, staying hydrated isn't just about water. You also need electrolytes. That's why I love Cure. It's clean, tastes great, and actually works. And for This Is Woman's Work listeners, you can get 20% off your first order at curehydration.com/woman's work with code Woman's Work. And if you get a post-purchase survey, make sure to let them know you heard about Cure right here. It really helps support the show. Don't just drink more water, upgrade it with Cure. So is there any danger in seeing what you want to see, or you kind of talked about over a week looking at all the things that you've seen and that have happened or whatever? And again, what came to me is like being curious about it, as opposed to if I set a goal and the first thing that I see that I don't go, oh, here's my answer, I'm running with that, or falling into old habits. I guess what I'm trying to do is distinguish between letting intuition lead versus trying to make something mean something that it doesn't.
So, one of the things about an intuitive process is what you're describing is an intellectual process. That's just one little piece of your functioning. What happens when you engage the prism, which is your ego, when you engage an active process, is that sure, you will think yourself out of any new information because that's the way we defend our integrity, our old integrity, and mammals hate change.
Mhm.
But what will happen because of both setting a goal and your intuitive process is you're going to bump into things that move you in different directions, and you will get off your old center and have opportunities to engage with the world differently. So I wrote something for Oprah magazine about one little thing, and the Prism is really about change something little. It's not, the answer is not within you. You can't fix a broken system with a broken tool. The answer is in doing something differently that is safe, but doesn't resonate with you. If it resonates with you, it's same old, same old. So doing something different and then allowing that to change you. I mean, it's kind of the old thing of, you can't have success until you accept abundance. Really? Who came up with these pap lines? No, you can have success if you find the mechanics of success, someone who's successful. That's what the Prism tries to do for you. Lots of different ways. A business group that by the way has a lot of followers. I love these PR places that have 7 followers. What is that? But and then you do something different that does not feel organic, that actually feels that's safe. You always want to be safe. I hate that thing of you have to take a risk. No, you really don't. It's the same way when a psychic tells you this didn't happen because there's free will. Really? No, it didn't happen because you didn't predict properly. Um, but you do something differently, and the world changes you. Sometimes getting exactly what you want is the healing, because then guess what? You've got to grow into that person. So what you do in the process is you make a tiny change, and the change for Oprah was wearing red. In my year, I was born in 1959. Redheads did not wear red, just like you didn't wear white shoes after Labor Day. And I was in a really bad situation, and this was quite a few years ago. And I was gonna be prominent at this party, and the person who dresses me, because I have no visual sense, gave me a red dress, and at that point, it was the least of my problems. I didn't care. I took the red dress, I put it on. That evening changed my life because I am a blue person. This is wild for me. I'm a navy blue and black person. Occasionally, I'll spritz it up with a little bit of white. And I walked in this red, sheath of a dress, and aggressive, wonderful, vibrant people who never would have noticed me or felt comfortable with the rigidity that is me approaching me did. Those people really formed the basis of the next half decade of my life just from wearing a different color. So really what is so important isn't the intellectualizing. You will absolutely put it in the same frame that will allow you not to change. It's the doing a tiny thing, tiny, 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 wear a different color, tiny thing differently, and then confirming it by noticing what happens.
Hmm.
So if I had worn red and there would have been no change, which I mean, I wasn't expecting a change. I was depressed and I didn't care what I wore. But if all of those wonderful things hadn't happened, I probably never would have worn red again, and that would have been fine. It wouldn't have been an effective strategy, and that's as helpful as knowing which strategies are effective. I have to tell you, I wear red all the time now, but I'm careful when I wear red. I don't wear red to take a walk on the street because I realize people come to you, and I don't wanna be bothered or catcalled or anything like that. I go back. There's a reason I like navy blue. But when I'm lecturing, I now have red. See me, be energized by me, respond, let me help you open, let me help you heal.
I love the change can be the smallest thing because I think sometimes, especially as women, we think it needs to be big in order for it to count. We think it needs to be risky in order for it to count. So I love, this kind of shift of that. So when we think about our goal, what is
Well, again, we don't think about it, we write it down, we
okay,
document. Like, we have to so, by the way, language describes us. I see that you're an intellectual and that you
1000%. That is absolutely going to be the default and the thing that I need
this
to.
is the book for you
Yeah.
because we don't think, we do. So we identify what the area is that is not working for us, and that is because we were developed in a certain way. It may have worked, our paradigm may have worked at one point, doesn't anymore.
Hmm.
And then we take one small action, small because we are mechanical, and this is very not popular in the spiritual community, but the world is mechanics. We're mechanical beings in a mechanical world, in a mechanical universe. There are rules to it. It doesn't mean that we don't have depth and wonder and spirit, but just like your human system is a machine, if there's a block in the circulatory system, it's not gonna work properly. So is your life. So a tiny change is actually the best change, also because you can't document accurately your big changes. There are too many things are happening. You wanna make a small change. "Oh, wow, that brought all these other things in my life, and now here's another little change based on what I need. What is the can do in the moment? What is the desire in the moment?" We make these overarching things, which really just frees us.
Hmm. You're 100% accurate. I so many times through the course of our conversation, I'm like, yes, I'm defaulting to intellectual thinking, and this is actually really challenging for me, even though I know somewhere deep down that relying on my intuition is a necessary thing for me to get where I want to be who I want to be. Um,
Can I be personal for a second?
Absolutely.
So for example, the way you would use intuition, because I don't rely on intuition, I rely on the balance between what I want, which often is illogical and counterintuitive, what I want, my goals, whether or not they're right or for the highest good or any of that other BS we tell ourselves. What do I want? What does intellect and evidence say? What possibilities does intuition open up? And then what can I do right now in this moment? Part of, and of course, I'm one intuitive, this is just my sense of you, but I would send you right to the sixth ego center and the fourth ego center because you cut off, and it's interesting that you're a communicator, you cut off at your expression, at your voice. You use your voice, but you intellectualize to protect yourself from your deep, deep feeling and compassion for others, which is also a little dysfunction. You were trained to that, to
Mhm.
hold other people's grief. And so you cut off right here. And in order to not shoot to intellect, in order to protect against feeling and have full mastery of your power. And what does that mean? It means you say, this is what I want, and the world whips itself into shape. You know, you need to deal with valuing self, and you need to go through the kind of terrifying reality that there are no answers.
Mhm.
And it's interesting that you use the ego center, which is voice, as your medium to help yourself and others. Because, of course, we live in an interconnected universe. That's every science now says if you sneeze in Antarctica, they're feeling it. But it's interesting that you use your voice to help people connect their vision to their feeling, to their possibilities.
I literally don't know where to go because my brain, like, I want to ask good questions for other people, and then I'm like, "This feels so personal." Like
It's not because we are essentially, when people talk about spirit, I call spirit the blob because if you if you entertain the idea of spirit, spirit is our oneness. Oneness that is perfect doesn't change. Who's doing the heavy lifting? We are. And we're doing it all for one another. What is true for you, although it's going to be different centers on a different person, and the prism shows you how to identify them, what's true for you, what you're working on, you're also giving as a healing tool to others. My damage center in a different way is my sixth ego center, which is observation. When we're born, we are taught to observe. That's how we learn. Then intellect. We put what we observe together to create something adaptable and autonomous. And then intuition. Children like me who are immediately intuitive are so because of trauma. And I will miss the most obvious things. My best friend said to me a couple months ago, "Could you just look nice?" And I'm like, "I am nice." And he goes, "I know you're nice, but you walk through a room with 20 people and you don't acknowledge anyone." It's because my observation is damaged. And it was really helpful to have that little catalyst because you know what I've been doing? When I walk in, I've been really, really trying to go back to the unhealed part, observation, and I've been trying to notice who's there. Let me give a salutation. Let me adjust this little, and my whole life has gotten better in many different ways because of it. One of the easiest ways to know what you need to work on is to notice either the language, because some people aren't feelers, or the feeling of where between the top of your head and the base of your spine you're stuck. Because that ancient system of chakras, which the ego centers are not chakras, they are literally your building blocks, but they correspond to them and to our endocrine system, which actually gives us all those feelings. But if you notice, When you are dealing with your spouse, where do you get stuck? If you kind of notice all of a sudden where your spouse gets stuck, then you know, oh, my spouse needs to understand, 6 ego center. My attention's here for me. I need to feel connected before I want to understand this person. So you have what the dialogue is, and then you have something to work with.
Your cart is full of things you don't need. Here's what you're actually missing. Listen, I'm not super comfortable talking about my sex life in front of thousands of people, but maybe that's the point. Because for many women, somewhere along the way, sex became a performance for someone else. We learned to focus on how it looks, not how it feels. It became about someone else's pleasure, their satisfaction, with ours being optional. So yeah, it's a little uncomfortable, but I'm willing to get uncomfortable for our intimacy and our pleasure. It's time for all of us to become beducated. Beducated has over 150 online courses on sex and intimacy created by the world's top experts, covering a huge variety of content with video tutorials, practical exercises, and here's the real kicker, reliable information. So this Black Friday, don't buy more crap you don't need. Invest in your sex life instead. Because here's the real deal. Mind-blowing, toe-curling pleasure that lasts. Think about it. Trends fade, gadgets wear out, but intimacy, that's timeless. And you'll lock in their biggest discount ever, risk-free with a 14-day money-back guarantee. That's Beducate, Beducate. Visit beducate.me/womanswork69 and use code womanswork69 for 65% off the annual pass, making it only $69 for the whole year. So the only question I have left is, are you ready to get beducated?
Hey there, it's Dr. Sanjay Gupta with some exciting news to share. CNN is now streaming. That means you can read, watch, and stream everything in one subscription. You can watch news live 24/7. You can also explore catch-up videos and explainer videos, and you can also watch the library of CNN's originals, including my latest documentary, It Doesn't Have to Hurt. Just go to cnn.com/all access.
You use the expression no new damage, and knowing what our damage is feels important.
I'm sorry, you said I could disagree. I disagree.
Yeah.
You don't need to know what your damage is. We spend a lot of time looking for our damage. Try something new, have a goal. Your damage is going to be the first guest at that party. No new damage is about, and this is something that's so easy in the moment. I ate half a sweet potato pie yesterday, and it ruined my entire day because all I wanted to do was sleep and I had stuff to do. That was new damage. There's a frenemy I have who I really do love, but every time I speak to her, I feel awful about myself. It took my husband to note that. That's new damage. I can't do that. I can still have contact with her. I love her, but I can't when I need my energy for something else or when I'm feeling, down about myself anyway, because I always end up feeling worse about myself when I'm with her or speak to her. So, so as you go through your day, if you just have foundationally, is this new damage? Is skipping my workout new damage, or am I just being overly rigid? What is saying what's on my mind? I mean, my husband has taught me not to press send because it is saying what's on my mind in this email new damage. Is that going to cause a shitload of trouble? Maybe wait and edit. So that is new damage. And I think what we do is again, especially people who are in their intellect, what we do is we tend to be lofty. Okay, I'm going to make this big commitment. No, 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 no. In the moment, sitting in this position without me moving my back, that's new damage. That's a backache later. Just little tiny things in the moment.
Okay, so little tiny things in the moment. Like I feel a little stuck. Even just in this like where to go, whatever. So I'm assuming we all have moments where we feel stuck. What are some simple things that we can do to reset or to reconnect in those moments?
Okay, so one thing is just what do you need in this moment that you know about? Plenty of what you need you don't know about, but what do you need that you can provide for yourself? Is it a sip of water? Is it a sad video that'll make you cry so you can release some of that anxiety? What do you need in the moment? Do you need a hug? I notice when I'm upset, I'll keep to myself, and my husband will say, "Do you need a little oxy?" And I wouldn't have even thought of getting a hug that would have calmed my nervous system down. Then what is it that what's your goal? And I think it's really helpful to have goals because you can reorient even the upset, rage, anxiety into, does this serve my goal? So it's really a filing system. It doesn't really matter what your goal is. It matters that you don't have an archaic filing system based on your past, but you have a new one based on your moment. What you'll find when you do that is almost magically, and I hate that word, possibilities bump into you, whether they're ideas that occur to you or somebody who suddenly calls you who solves your problem. Telepathy is a real, very studied function. And when you recalibrate your prism, what happens is that communication changes. And again, if you have to believe something, your belief works, the tool doesn't. Notice. Do something different and notice. The other thing is notice where it is in your body. And the way that the prism works is you notice it and then you go to that chapter and you go to one of the assertions or one of the questions that feels ridiculous. Oh yeah, a psychic wrote this book because this is so weird. I am so not on board with this. And that will help you make a shift. The other thing to do is if you know a calm person, how do they deal with that moment? Give them a call. I'm lucky enough to have a spouse who is my polar opposite.
Me too.
So when I'm batshit crazy,
Yeah.
I can say, I'm really spinning. And he's like, let's go for a walk. Or have you eaten today? Which I often forget. Or, you only slept 4 hours last night. Um, you know, go read something mindless. Like he's really good at giving me that guidance. Of course, I love self-help. I write self-help. But being in communities where we bump up against one another and taking in information as if it were true before you filter it. So what can I act on that's safe and true? Like when my friend said, "At least look friendly." You know, I thought that was really ballsy and insulting of him to say. But you know what? It made a huge difference. People I have known for 30 years who've been in my environment noticed me in a different way, and I noticed them, and there was a real connection. It was huge. Those of you who are organically observant probably aren't getting what I'm saying. So make those little changes. The other thing is anything that tells you that you are defective, that you need to work harder, that you're not enough, that's just not how it works. If you had the answer inside of you, you would have answered the question. There's a tiny, tiny shift that you can make. It's not, you are just fine the way you are. And in fact, the worst part of you are probably your biggest strengths. Your pathology is your potential because it's what you've had to hide. It's where you've had to work. It's what you've
Mhm.
had to deal with. And by the way, if you let it be, you're a superstar in that. You know, Also, feeling isn't fact. One thing I love about intuition is it is immediate, actionable, and accurate. That's how you know it's intuition and not fear. If your fear tells you that you are going to be alone forever, it's not your intuition. Intuition doesn't do that. Intuition says, if you don't do this now, you will be alone tomorrow. It is really, we are so much, what is that wonderful quote? The simplicity on the other side of complexity. We really do have this wonderful mechanism inside of us that dumbs it down so we can act on it, and allow that mechanism to work for you. But again, go back to have a goal. You can achieve any goal. You can't always achieve it in the way you're conceiving it now, but the way you're conceiving it now, if you haven't achieved it, was probably the way you conceived it at 5 years old. You can have that goal appropriate for you now. I have never seen someone unable to achieve it.
So that leads me to my last question, which is where do setbacks and obstacles play a part in practicing and honing your intuition and achieving your goals? You said earlier intuition is accurate. I just have yet to meet anybody who everything works out perfectly and easily, right? So setbacks and obstacles, how does that play a role?
It's the lesson plan. I mean, when you do something and you don't get a desired result, then you find tools to do it better. I mean, intuition, the only magic thing in this universe is you and your connection to each other and the world around you. That's the only real you are your magic wand. When you set a goal, usually the first thing you hit or the first thing you notice are the setbacks, are the barriers, are the traumas that get in the way that you don't need to go back to. Research shows go back to your trauma, you re-traumatize yourself. No, you just say, oh, wow, I need a tool to deal with this. Clearly, I don't have it because, again, if the answer was within, you need an external catalyst. Who does this well? Where do I find this? How do I create this? And you follow. I think there's a lot of stress on understanding. And a lot of stress on if I were doing it right, things wouldn't go wrong. No, a reptile is its most vulnerable when it shed that old constricting skin and before it grows its new one. And we are always in that process if we want our lives to be wonderful and move forward of growing that new skin. So when an obstacle arises, you say, yay. Now I know the course I need to take. I'm not good at saying yay, by the way. I say, shit, not again. I'm so pissed off. Why is this happening to me? I mean, listen, some people who write self-help do so because they started up so messed up that if they didn't, they wouldn't be here to guide you.
Right. Laura, this has been fully and entirely fascinating and honestly really challenging. And I love that. So thank you for being here, for doing and being the work that you are, for writing all of these books. I, for one, am getting the Prism like right now. Listener, if you, like me, want to learn more about your intuition and about Laura's website is lauraday.com. And you can also follow her on Instagram at lauradayintuit. She provides daily information and intuition and all the things. Laura, thank you so much for a really compelling conversation.
Thank you. This was really, really lovely. It is good to have people who are in their heads because they structure things well.
Yes, and just the reminder that I'm so much more than what's in my head. So lots of opportunity for myself and hopefully for those listening in as well. I'm going to close us out. And as I always do, I always pre-write my closing. So I'm going to read what I wrote, but man, I don't know if it applies anymore. So here we go. Learning to hear and trust your intuition is not about abandoning logic or throwing out strategy. It's about remembering that your inner compass is there and has always been there, waiting for you to trust yourself enough to follow it. Because at the end of the day, you don't need to second guess everything, and you certainly don't need more shoulds, more opinions, or more proof. You need more you. Your intuition is not woo-woo and it's not reckless. It's your built-in alignment system designed to guide you toward the life you want and were meant to live. So if you've been waiting for a step-by-step plan before you take any leaps, consider this your reminder that the thing you need most is small steps, small actions. And the more you practice listening to your inner knowing, the clearer and stronger it'll become. Trust yourself firmly and boldly, because that is woman's work.